Hello, welcome to the Roundtable. Please get ready for our in-depth analysis on latest global affairs with experts. Let me introduce our guest for today. We are joined by Professor Kim-Hana. Welcome to the Roundtable.
Thanks for having me.
We are also joined by Dr. Choi Soo-jin. Welcome to the Roundtable.
Glad to be back.
Last week, it was a festival for Korean baseball fans. They were thrilled to watch Major League Baseball games in Seoul. The MLB is the second highest earning professional sports league following the US National Football League or NFL. Two MLB teams, the Los Angeles Dodgers and the San Diego Padres, opened the 2024 season last week in the first ever regular season games played in South Korea. Professor Kim, what was your impression?
Well, I found it very exciting, and I'm sure I'm not the only one. I think a lot of people in Korea were really excited to watch the games, especially because it's the first time the MLB games took place in Korea. So in many ways, it was very exciting.
Professor Choi, could you explain our viewers the significance of having these games in South Korea?
Well, I think having the MLB Seoul Series in Korea tells us that MLB thinks Korea is an important market, and I think this will be a sort of a test bed whether MLB will have more games in the future in Korea. Yeah.
That is a clear testimony that the quality of the baseball league in South Korea is highly respected by the scouts in the United States.
Right.
Not only the market perspective, but also recruitment perspective.
I agree.
Baseball superstar Shohei Ohtani came into the spotlight during the Seoul Series. He is even called the Japanese Koreans love the most. He's so popular that even those who are not baseball or MLB fans now know his name. So, Professor Kim, what makes him so loved and popular?
I think Ohtani is loved for many different reasons. First, he's an excellent baseball player. He is an elite two-way baseball player, so he's good at both hitting and pitching. And a lot of people compare him to Babe Ruth because of his skills. Also, he signed a record $700 million 10-year contract with the LA Dodgers, which is unheard of. So this is a record-breaking contract. But despite that, he continues to maintain a very humble demeanor, and he seems very kind. He has this very gentle image. But I think in particular, he stood out to Korean fans because while they were flying over from the United States, he put the Korean flag on his social media accounts. He wrote in Korean, even though it was grammatically incorrect. And he has stated that Korea is one of his favorite countries. So I think that really riled up the Korean fans even more and found him more adoring.
Right. Shortly before his visit to Korea, Ohtani made a surprise announcement about his marriage. His wife came to Korea with him and drew explosive public attention. Everything about her, from her bag to her seat at the ballpark, created a sensation in Korea. Professor Choi, let's talk about this in a broad context of South Korea-Japan relations. Do you think that the popularity and the love for Ohtani leading to better partnership between South Korea and Japan, or the other way around, that the improved relationship between Seoul and Tokyo allows South Koreans being affectionate toward Ohtani?
Well, I think the two things might co-evolve together. Between Korea and Japan, there has been increasing cultural exchanges and interactions over time. And recently, many Koreans have visited Japan because of the weakening of the yen, and also the Korean younger generation like Japanese cultures. And in addition to that, I would say that, as Professor Kim mentioned, not only the athletic ability of Ohtani, but also his personality and humble attitude all kind of resonate deeply with the Korean fans. So considering these kind of things, the Ohtani's popularity also contributed to the softening of the relationships between Japan and Korea.
I see. The Seoul MLB opener was Ohtani's first game as a Dodger. He made his Dodgers debut in Seoul. So the Seoul Series was at the center of global attention from the beginning. It was an issue that generated substantial ripple effects across the board, from economy to culture. So, Professor Kim, tell us more about this ripple effect coming from this Seoul Series.
So I think, as you mentioned, Ohtani seems to have this political, economic, and cultural influence. Economically, he's signed one of the biggest contracts in the world, and that indicates that he will be making more money for the Dodgers just based off of that contract. But also culturally, as Professor Choi mentioned earlier, he could be a type of cultural ambassador between Korea and Japan and even the United States because he is adored and loved by fans in all three countries. And also politically, he has a lot of soft power because of his demeanor, because of his character. So in many ways, he's having a ripple effect, not just based on his skills, but also based on his demeanor and personality.
As it was reported that Ohtani drove a Hyundai Sonata in his early days in the United States. Hyundai Motor provided for a fleet of official vehicles for the Seoul Series for free. There was also a gift of an Ioniq 5 to the player who hit the first home run at the opening games, who turned out to be Mookie Betts of the LA Dodgers. And Hyundai enjoyed enormous advertising effects. Professor Che, could you tell us more about these economic benefits and effects that the South Korean companies enjoy?
Well, as you know, that the MLB opening league is such a big event, attracting a lot of global attention, and the economic gains is estimated to be like around 150 million US dollars, and it includes the ticket sales, dining, accommodation, tourism, and all the other indirect effects. And especially the sports marketing is really effective in this sports events because it can leave some stronger and longer lasting impression on consumers about the brand image. And for example, the beer is one of the most popular beverage consumed in the baseball stadium. And I've seen somewhere else in the news report that there was kind of a beer war between Cass and Terra, the two most popular Korea beer brands, right? So they know that it's really the rare chance that they can publicize their brand as nation's best-selling beer brand in Korea ever after, right? And although this kind of promotion may not boost the revenue immediately or directly, I think that it can solidify the consumer's engagement with the brand itself and also kind of strengthen the brand image globally. Yep.
When we are talking about beer sales, that we cannot forget about sales of fried chickens, right? They go together.
Definitely,
right.
yeah.
The two opening games and exhibition games were exclusively presented by Coupangplay, the OTT service run by Coupang. Coupang reportedly spent about 11.3 million US dollars on hosting the MLB opening games in Seoul. So, Professor Che, what was the reason for Coupang to make such a huge investment?
Well, I think the primary reason might be to attain and attract the membership. If you are a Coupang WOW member, you can enjoy several other membership benefits. When you are buying product in Coupang, you have the discount and additional coupons and things like that. And then you can use the Coupang Eat service, Coupang overnight delivery services, and etc. And in addition to all of these membership benefits, if you can also have an access to the streaming of the sports event, it's really hard for you to cancel the membership, aren't you? Right?
I'm not going to cancel my membership.
So the reason that Coupang is really eager to maintain this membership and attract more members to their services is because of the fierce competition which is expected from other e-commerce companies like Temu and AliExpress. And I think the Roundtable have addressed this issue several weeks ago, right? So in order to maintain the initiative in the Korean market, I think Coupang is kind of using streaming the sports event as a survival strategy. Yeah, I think like that.
Professor Kim, is it true that the Coupang has acquired the exclusive right to broadcast the Major League Baseball games even before Ohtani signed with Dodgers?
Yeah, so they did attain the rights before Ohtani signed. So Ohtani signing with the Dodgers was like a blessing in disguise for Coupang. Move. It was a very good investment, especially because the first time Ohtani showed his wife, Mamiko Tanaka, to the public was at the Incheon airport. And because of that, Coupang had the rights to stream the Dodgers coming in from the airport and the games in general. So in that sense, Coupang got a really good deal. And as Professor Choi mentioned, this also increased membership of Coupang WOW members as well. So in many ways, Coupang really got a good deal with this agreement.
Definitely. Broadcasting sports events is being seen as a new income source for OTT service companies. Another Korean OTT provider, Tving, won the exclusive right to broadcast Korea's pro baseball games online for the 2024 season. So, Professor Choi, it seems like the broad trend that the OTT is now the main distribution channel for sports events.
Yeah, that's true. I think watching the sports events through the pay-per-view service is not unusual in other countries. And this kind of service has been extended recently to the OTT platforms. And for instance, the Apple TV Plus has signed an exclusive deal with the Major League Soccer to release their games from this year until 2032. And I think this kind of reason behind this movement might be because of the sports content is becoming a killer content for the OTT services, because it's much cheaper for them to streaming the sports event compared to producing the movies or dramas. And for movies and dramas, they are all the experience goods. So nobody knows which movie or drama will succeed, right? But in the case of the sports, they have the loyal sports fans. So they have like the captive audiences. And what is good is that this audience will not cancel the membership until the sports season ends. So they are kind of locked into this OTT platform as a subscribers. And in addition to that, there could be some synergistic effect between the sports events and the XR, extended reality technology. So I think for OTT providers, the sports events can be their next driving force for their business.
I see. Yeah. Just 2 major league games were played in Korea, but they left a lot of special memories and historical records. Let's move on to the next topic. In the United States, controversy has been escalating over the video sharing application called TikTok. We'll talk about it after watching a video. Please take a look.
TikTok has about 170 million users in the US. US adults spend 55.8 minutes a day on TikTok. 58% of US teenagers are daily users of TikTok. All these are statistics about TikTok, a Chinese app used in the US. Owned by China's ByteDance, TikTok is leading the charge in the short-form video content market by hosting user-provided videos that are about 15 seconds long. In January, TikTok CEO Xiao Zhiqiu was among the heads of social media companies who testified at a U.S. Senate hearing. The Singaporean businessman was grilled about what appeared to be ideological issues, such as alleged links with China.
Of what nation are you a citizen?
Singapore.
Are you a citizen of any other nation?
No, Senator.
Have you ever been a member of the Chinese Communist Party?
Senator, I'm Singaporean. No.
Have you ever been associated or affiliated with the Chinese Communist Party?
No, Senator. Again, I'm
Okay.
Singaporean.
In the US, even there are concerns that personal information of TikTok users could be handed over to China. US politicians and legislators called TikTok a puppet of Chinese Communist Party and initiated a bill that could ban the video sharing app. The US House of Representatives passed the bill on March 13th. The bill requires TikTok's Chinese parent company ByteDance to sell its stake within 6 months. If ByteDance doesn't accept the demand, the short video app would face a nationwide ban in the US. What is the reason for this outright move? Supporters of the bill insist that the ban is needed because of Article 7 in China's National Intelligence Law. The article stipulates that all organizations and citizens shall support, assist, and cooperate with national intelligence efforts. It enables the Chinese government to legitimately demand and receive information from organizations and individuals on the grounds of national security. In 2022, some ByteDance employees were found to have improperly accessed user data using TikTok, prompting the U.S. Justice Department to launch an investigation. But China is up in arms about the U.S. move. China insists that the U.S. has been bullying TikTok for years, although it has not found evidence on how TikTok endangers its national security. It also says that TikTok is not collecting user data, particularly more than other social media companies. But the important thing is the possible TikTok ban is emerging as a key issue for the U.S. presidential election. With the election approaching, there is a growing sense of urgency that a social media platform where young voters in their teens and the Generation Z find community to connect and engage each other could be yielded to China. Presidential frontrunners Joe Biden and Donald Trump are showing obvious difference on the TikTok ban bill. Trump flip-flopped on his previous stance and is now opposing the TikTok ban, which he says would only serve to empower Facebook and its founder Mark Zuckerberg. In stark contrast, President Joe Biden says he would sign the legislation if it passes the Senate.
If they pass it, I'll sign it.
Attention is being drawn to how the TikTok ban bill, now a hot political issue, will influence the U.S. presidential election and the relations between Washington and Beijing.
The United States is embroiled in a society-wide dispute over TikTok. So, professors, do you use TikTok? Are you familiar with it?
No, I'm not.
I don't use it, but I know a lot of my students have been using TikTok quite frequently.
I see. Professor Kim, as you know, that the House of Representatives in the United States passed a bill that possibly ban the TikTok doing business in the United States, unless the TikTok will be changing the ownership.
Right.
How is the general response to this decision by the Congress?
I mean, so as you know, the House of Representatives passed this bill, and 352 Congress members voted in favor of it, while 65 Congress members voted against. And so this indicates that a large majority of Congress members are in favor of the bill. So this would either, if this continues on and legislation passes, this would indicate that either TikTok will be banned or it will have to change ownership to a foreign company.
Right.
And so now many young Americans are quite concerned about this because, as we mentioned earlier, many young Americans use TikTok. Many people in general use TikTok. TikTok is the 5th most popular social media platform in the world. And as we mentioned, it's now more popular among younger generations, more so than Facebook or Instagram or X, which was formerly known as Twitter. And there are about 170 million users in the United States. So if this gets banned, TikTok would also lose a significant number of TikTok users. But so many young Americans are worried about possible ban of TikTok. But at the same time, young Americans are also quite concerned about the amount of attention this is getting, because there are many other things that the U.S. government needs to focus on right now, including affordable housing, healthcare, immigration, climate change. And so young TikTokers are actually showing on TikTok or complaining on TikTok about the amount of attention this is getting and why the government is not focusing on other issues.
I see. Then why, Professor Choi, why United States government is going after TikTok so harshly? There must be some reasons.
I think this is prompted by the complaint filed by Win Tao, the former executive of ByteDance. ByteDance is the parent company of TikTok. And in the complaint, it says that the company is engaged in quote-unquote worldwide scheme to steal and profit from the content of others. And in the complaint, Win Tao also mentioned that the Chinese government is having a sort of a supreme access to all the company data. The thing also stored in the United States. So in addition to this complaint, TikTok has also been accused of collecting a lot of extensive data from their users. So those kind of extensive data collection was based on to predict the users' preferences of what kind of things they might like when using TikTok.
Professor Kim, what do you think? Will this be a trigger of new round of conflicts and feud between Washington and Beijing?
I think U.S.-China relations are going to struggle a little bit because of this. I mean, we've seen the deterioration of U.S.-China relations a bit more recently, and this is going to be adding on to that. And so in a way, it may worsen relations. From the U.S.'s perspective, TikTok is being used as a political tool, and they see it as a national security risk. Whereas from China's perspective, the way in which the U.S. is acting is seen as a form of discrimination against foreign businesses. And so they're coming at this from very different perspectives. And the Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesperson Wang Wenbin said that the U.S. has no evidence that TikTok is a threat to national security. So they're looking at this from very different perspectives, but we can see that both governments, both Beijing and Washington, are not looking at the situation very favorably. But the ironic thing is that if this passes and TikTok is banned in the US, then TikTok will be banned in both the US and China.
Oh, okay.
So there will be no access to this in either countries.
With the presidential election scheduled to be held in November this year, Joe Biden and Donald Trump are disagreeing on the TikTok ban bill. Both of them even reversed their previous stances on the issue. Professor Che, why did they change the stances?
Well,
I know the answer, because they want to win the election, right?
Biden changed his position from con to pro on the TikTok bill. And presumably, the reason might be the worsening relationships, as Professor Kim just mentioned, between China and the United States. And in addition, there has been the growing concern, just we've discussed, about the national security thing related to the TikTok data exploitation. And in the case of Trump, what Trump has just mentioned was that this bill will only contribute to the expansion of Mark Zuckerberg's. And for reference, Facebook has a history of suspending Trump's account in 2021.
I remember.
Right?
Yes.
Remember?
Yes.
And I found that another news report were talking about the relationship between Trump and Jeffrey Yazd, the major donor of the Republican Party, as well as the significant investor of ByteDance.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, whose position will win the public sentiment? I think it's really hard to speculate, but it may depend on which value the nation might treat as more important. Would it be the freedom of speech or the national security? According to the survey that I just found, it says that the majority of the US citizens who are over 30s or older than that consider the TikTok as the potential threat of the national security. So even though there are many younger generation in the US who are using TikTok, I think the majority thoughts might be different from that, as the survey shown by the YouGov, the market research company. So my answer would be
It depends.
It depends, but Biden would win more support from the public, I would say. Yeah.
Well, my final question is, if this is such an explosive issue to actually decide the result of the presidential election, or this is just one of many issues that will affect the presidential election in the United States in November, but it's not going to be one of the central issues.
That's another hard question, but the TikTok is related with the younger generations, right? And the Democrats are based on the support from the younger generation. So I think I would not say that it's the major point, but the critical point that could change the result of the election.
If you consider the demographic, differences in the election, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with Professor Choi, because right now, both parties are trying to appeal to young voters. And for young voters, there are a lot of political issues that are concerning to them. As I mentioned, some of them earlier, including climate change, immigration, affordable healthcare, abortion rights. But TikTok is a very different dimension to all of this. This is something that affects their everyday lives, and so it may have this indirect effect on their voting behavior.
The next question is about whether or not the Senate will pass the bill, and if ByteDance will sell its stake within 6 months after legislation goes into effect. What is your prediction about the TikTok's future?
So under this new bill, ByteDance would have 165 days to divest from TikTok, meaning that it would either have to sell TikTok to a company not based in China or get banned from the US. And so 165 days is still a good amount of time. And so in that sense, I think that it will be hard to ban TikTok right away, especially because the ban would essentially penalize app stores for making TikTok available for download. But that doesn't mean that people who already have TikTok on their phones will have to erase the apps right away. So it would be very difficult to stop individual use for users who already have the apps downloaded on their phones. And also, users can use a VPN or a virtual private network to access TikTok as well. So in that sense, it will be difficult to control the usage of TikTok in the short term.
Professor Che?
Well, actually, there are several countries that already banned or limited the use of the TikTok. For instance, the United Kingdom, Australia, and France. And in the case of India, they completely banned the use of TikTok. And you know what happened in that country? There has been a rapid growth of the Instagram, because the Instagram launched the Reels, and Reels is the short form video clip services, so it kind of played a substitute for the TikTok. So by seeing this example, I think the switching cost between the two platforms might not be that huge. So considering all these aspects, I would say that the future of TikTok appears to be not that rosy. Yeah.
Called the magic of 15 seconds, TikTok has been dominating the social media scene with short videos. The world is closely watching how the feud between the United States and China will unfold and what awaits ahead for TikTok. Professor Che and Professor Kim, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is all we have today. We will be back next week with more interesting up-to-date issues. Thanks for watching and goodbye.